So, Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury is set to take place next month on the 26th of February, and I've done like a breakdown and a prediction for that fight. However, in the background of that fight, there's something else that I wanted to talk about, and that is the backup opponent for Jake Paul, exclusively for Jake Paul. If Jake Paul happened to pull out, the event would, I assume, just go down the toilet. But this is a replacement just in case Tommy pulls out. Obviously, he's pulled out twice before, so they're taking precautions. And that replacement opponent is the one, the only, Platinum Mike Perry. UFC fans would know him. Bare Knuckle fans would know him. Former UFC welterweight. Had some good wins in the UFC. Wins over like Paul Felder, Jake Ellenberger. Good wins in the UFC. Very close fight with Santiago Ponzinibbio. A pretty legit welterweight fighter in the UFC. Not a championship caliber fighter, but a fun guy to watch. Bit of a brawler, scrapper, tough guy, big power in his hands, a lot of finishes. Good fighter. He since then has fought in Triad Combat, and he actually fought against a former boxer, Michael Seals, who may have been a world champion or world title challenger. He was a very legitimate professional boxer. Mike Perry managed to survive a knockdown in the fourth round of that fight and actually come out and win the decision. So that was very impressive. Since then, he's transitioned to bare knuckle boxing, and he's picked up a few wins there, obviously over Julian Lane, otherwise known as the Let Me Bang Bro guy from The Ultimate Fighter. If you don't know that, just look up that clip, I beg you. It's hilarious. He's the guy who kept saying, "Let me bang," and crying. Hilarious. He picked up a win against him, and then he also picked up a win against Michael Venom Page from Bellator recently, the Bellator welterweight champion, or was the Bellator welterweight champion. So Mike Perry has had a pretty impressive combat sports career at the moment, and he is the backup opponent in case Tommy Fury pulls out. So I just wanted to give a little breakdown of that, what I think about it. It's pretty interesting to me. I think he's an interesting fight for Jake Paul, and I understand both levels. I understand why Jake Paul has him in mind as a backup. Mike Perry has been calling out Jake Paul for a very long time. And I feel like Jake Paul looks at Mike Perry as a guy who gets hit a lot, a scrapper, not the most technical guy, very hittable, and someone that he could beat as a short notice replacement opponent. So I think that's how Jake's looking at it. And if you didn't know, Jake Paul and Mike Perry actually sparred as well, probably around 2 years ago now, when Jake was on the come up, I think before the Woodley fights, maybe even before the Ben Askren fight, don't quote me on that. They had a spar, and Jake leaked a bit of the footage at the end where Jake seemed to be getting the better of Mike Perry, jabbing him, moving. Jake is the larger man. And it also showed after the spar, Mike Perry saying to Jake Paul, "You really kicked my ass in that spar." So there's a bit of history between the two, and since then, Mike Perry's been trying to get the fight because he kind of looked at it as, "Oh, you leaked sparring, and you're saying that, you're releasing this thing and saying that you beat me up. That's not how the whole spar went," which is probably true. But I think Jake Paul probably looks at it as, listen, Mike Perry's hittable, he's scrappy, he's tough, it's a good opponent on paper for me, people will respect it to some degree if Tommy Fury does pull out, but he also probably looks at it as winnable for himself, and he probably thinks I got the better of him in sparring, whether that happened or not. I think, so I understand Jake Paul's perspective on picking Mike Perry, but it's a really risky fight. Mike Perry, one of the most entertaining fighters to watch when he was in the UFC, still one of the most entertaining fighters to watch in bare knuckle. Even if you don't watch bare knuckle, I beg of you to watch Mike Perry's next fight, whenever that may be. He's still under contract with them. He's just a very scrappy, entertaining fighter, a wild man. He's from Florida. That's really all you need to know. He's a wild dude, very funny, has done some controversial things here or there, but I really think he's a funny dude. He's wild. His heart's in the right place. I'm a fan of him. But I think it's an interesting matchup if it does end up happening. Obviously, the matchup itself is Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul, so this Mike Perry matchup might not even happen. But it's interesting, if it does happen. I think I get I can see Jake winning. I can see Jake comfortably just beating Mike Perry. Mike Perry walking into punches and Jake just beating him up for the duration. I could see Jake getting a finish because Mike Perry just gets hit so much. But he's insanely tough, so I don't know if Jake can finish him, so it's interesting on that level. Mike Perry is a smaller guy, fought at 170, welterweight in the UFC, and I believe the same in bare knuckle. So he's a smaller guy, so Jake would have that on his side. So I get why Jake has picked him, but I think Mike Perry is so tough and he's got good cardio. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily great cardio, but he keeps coming forward even if he's tired. He's incredibly tough and he's got very heavy hands. So it's a risky matchup if it does end up happening for Jake. I'm not going to really give an official prediction because I don't know if the fight's going to happen or not. If it gets announced that Tommy Fury's pulled out and Mike Perry is stepping in, I'll give a prediction of the fight, but I just wanted to give a quick breakdown of that and the fact that Mike Perry is the replacement because it's very interesting. If you don't know a lot about Mike Perry, do some research on him, watch some of his fights. Very entertaining fighter, very funny guy. Has had some drama in his time in the spotlight, but very fun fighter and, an interesting matchup for Jake. Not necessarily, I think, as easy of a matchup as Jake might think it is. So, yeah, that's about it. Just wanted to break that down. See ya.